All right, welcome everyone to Therapeutic Astrology Podcast. I am here with Perdita Finn, the author of Mothers of Magic, Summoning the Wisdom of Our Ancestors. This is a book from 2026. Welcome, Perdita.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm just delighted to be here.
Oh, yes, I am too. And I want to begin just really quickly, not a long speech or anything, but really quickly, I do want to compliment your book. I feel that it's really informing me and it's so soulful at the same time. So I was like, I need to take this sentence in. And that I love that when reading books where I feel like I need that sentence again and again and again because there's more to it than just information. Do you know what I mean?
I hope so. That was my goal. My goal was to give people back a story that has not been told coherently
Mm,
and in its full scope, which is, what did it mean to be a mother before civilization? What is it and what does it become within it?
mm,
And and I felt like I needed to tell a very different story than, the triumphant rise of civilization and our ascendant human species uploading its
mm.
consciousness to the cloud and some great rapturous technological flurry. Sorry.
Yeah, so that and that's the message, and we're gonna speak about that. I just want to make that note that it's also really soulfully written. So
Thank you.
it's like goes to another layer of you.
Thank you. Well, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I wrote it entirely by myself. I felt like,
Mm,
quite literally, as I began to write, I began to feel the ones I call the old ones, these grandmothers from before civilization. I'm not a psychic. I don't see people, I don't hear people, but I really felt the presence of voices that needed to speak. And I found myself writing in a way I'd never written before.
wow. Wow. What a journey. What a yeah, point for you to reach as well. Okay, so Mothers of Magic. I want to begin by informing the listeners that it's that what is this mother? Like it's not just an individual identity, right? It's a collective reality. And just one quote from there's so many good quotes, but just one quote that kind of captures how it's more of a collective reality when you speak about mothers. It's where you say, "We are the women you burned. We are the women who were tortured and raped, crushed and condemned, hung, drowned, and lashed to the stakes. We are the women you tried to silence, and we are back. We always come back. Everyone comes back. Everyone comes back." Yeah, good.
That's my
Do.
message. That's my primary message is what I call the long story of our souls, which is, to live in the mother's way, um, was not to live in a matriarchy. A matriarchy, archy implies a hierarchy, a
Hmm.
pyramid scheme, as it were. But to live in the mother's way was to live not in lines of domination and power, but to live in circles of belonging. And the fundamental truth of those circles of belonging was the eternal return. And you see this in indigenous cultures around the world and in hunter-gatherer cultures. It's a ubiquitous, go back in any religious tradition, and you will find, even in Judaism and Christianity, a fundamental faith in the eternal return. And when we live that way, it's very different. And it means that our identities are much more fluid than we imagine. So sort of clinging to the notion of male, female, human, animal, plant seems somewhat foolish in the face of this. And and I did a lot of anthropological and historical research. The book has 9 million footnotes, and but which are I try not to be oppressive. They're just at the end for those people who want to see that I did my work.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but what it meant, what it's come to mean. The word mother in our
Mm.
modern capitalist culture is a very sentimentalized word and a scapegoated word. It's trivial, it's become so small. And what we ask, Denmark, I think, is a lot better than the United States, but in my country, what's asked of mothers is phenomenally impossible. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
There are no social services, there's no health care, the education is catastrophe. Women go in, our maternal mortality rates are just going through the roof. I mean, it's a nightmare. And at the
Hmm.
same time, there's this kind of trad wife movement to assert that, these little women need to put on their little aprons and start making bread again. And uh, but if you go back before civilization,
Mm.
there is an experience of mothering that, as you from the quote, is collective, not individualized. It's not a biological phenomenon. It's not who had the baby. A really astounding fact I found out is that in many hunter-gatherer cultures, a baby will be held on any given day by 17 different people on average.
Yeah, that's so different.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's really beautiful too is that that child will probably be nursed by that many people.
Wow.
Right? Like
Mm.
like one woman's body isn't responsible for the entire feeding of this being. And here's the really radical idea. People have such a hard time wrapping their minds around it. Men don't think of themselves as fathers in the patriarchal sense. They think of themselves as male mothers. And there's a marvelous book called Sex at Dawn that looks at this. They think of their semen not as making a baby inside a vessel of a woman, but that the woman holds life within her. And when they make love to her, they are feeding the potentiality of life within her. So they are also mothers.
Mhm.
It's a very different relationship to our bodies, to sex, to community. It's it's really different.
It's really this whole shift that you're talking about. And I think people can recognize it from just men are allowed to be more feminine now. I mean, there's another movement with the manosphere as well, but there's also this movement of men are allowed to love their children in a feminine way.
I mean, yes, and also all of these ideas of gender really just mostly get in our way, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're telling us who we're supposed to be, not who we've been. And we've all been plants and animals and
Yeah. And when you just said that, I go back to in my memory of your book, like you grew up in a very specific way where that was very open, like praying almost to a plant or speaking to them at least,
my
right?
mother would never pray. My mother was my parents, I grew up in a very atheistic, modern 1950s household. But my parents were unacknowledged animists. They didn't have a language, or they didn't have a conscious language for what they were, but they both loved animals and they both loved nature. So much so that they built this house that was all windows so the plants could go wild.
Oh,
You had this feeling I mean, I never really took it in as a child. I knew our house looked different than other people's homes. But there were so many ways it was different that it was hard to pinpoint one of them. But like in our kitchen, there was a fig tree with figs and an orange tree with oranges, and there are vines crawling up the wall. And the first time my husband came, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, wow, you didn't tell me your mother was a witch." You know.
yeah, a
And
witch.
I
Yeah.
As a child, I kind of intuited she was a witch from one of the old stories. And there
Mm.
was fear in me about that. There was fear that, those old witches eat you.
Mm. Yeah. And now you see it very differently, right? And but do you agree that that's maybe where the origin of your relationship now to everything, like gender, and then you go into like, but plans, like what are we anyway? All of these relationships, and also you speak about who we have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Who have we been? So I ask people sometimes this question. I said, today, right now,
Yeah.
what animal do you remember having been?
Mm.
I'm asking you, right?
Oh no, I. Oh man. It's difficult for me, Perdita, because I have
Top of
like
your head. Don't think. Don't think. Just off the top of your head. Who do
a
you want?
bear. A bear. I think of a bear.
It's so interesting you say bear because I am definitely a bear person. In fact, my husband wrote a story about me as the bear who came to live with him. And and we nearly called our son Bear. And
Oh,
and we call him Jonah Bear. But Bear is and I live in a place with many, many, many bears. And we have deep
wow.
relationships with them. And bear people, it's funny, I recognized you as a bear person when I first.
Ah.
And that feeling of what is our connection to each other? What is our soul connection? What if it's more than human? What if
Mm,
we are bear people as well as human people together and bear
mm.
mothers together? And bear magic is very powerful. And bear mothers, I mean, you don't want to get between a bear mother and her cubs. Let me
No.
tell you, the only time the black bears we have are not dangerous at all. They're very sweet, but they're enormous and they're powerful, and their only danger is getting between a mother and her cubs.
I want to go through some of my notes from your book. And one thing is that we all begin our lives within our grandmother's bodies. This is really important in therapy as well. So we know where the trauma comes from, or whatever trait comes from. And you say that the egg that will become our body is already nestled within the egg that will become our mother's body within our grandmother's bodies.
That's
But
a
then,
scientific fact, actually.
yeah, I know, yeah, but it's just nice to have that repeated. I mean, sometimes I'm struggling to explain what I mean about that when I try to say something of the sort in therapy, you know? And this is actually my question is about what you call the bottomless sinkholes of trauma and strategy. Because this is like, okay, what do we do when the ones that came before us was so had so much trauma?
Okay. So to be a human being at this moment, 8,000 years into the civilization experiment, is to have an inheritance of trauma. Trauma
Ah,
is what civilization does. Civilization invents war, slavery, rape, misogyny. We have almost no evidence of human violence before the foundation of the first cities and the hoarding of the first grains. Civilization, patriarchy, and violence are synonymous. And it's important to know that. It's not like we're going to get civilization right with a little tinkering. Like if we, oh my gosh, if we just elect a better prime minister or something, well, or president, it'll all fall into place. It never
mm,
falls into place. It's always producing the Epsteins and the Elon Musks. That's what civilization does. That's who it produces. Those are the winners. And
yeah.
and and it's important to know that because all of our human ancestors and many of our animal and plant ancestors have also suffered trauma at the hands of this catastrophic experiment, right? And so, what do we do with that? What do we do with that tremendous weight of sorrow to be here, having looked at I had a moment when I was very sick 2 years ago and ended up septic and in the hospital, and they didn't know why. And so they were, throwing a lot of drugs at me, and I had these very high fevers, and I had this one night, I couldn't, whether I opened my eyes or shut my eyes, all I could see were visions of human genocide throughout civilization's history. The slaughters, the disembowelments, the mass graves, the violence, and
So that was like a match to your sickness, those
yeah, I could just,
visions.
and it was a horrific, and I had these headaches and my body aches, and it was really like I just felt, I literally felt like I was immersed in this, and I actually called out, I called out to the mountain I walk on, and then I called out to another mountain mother, who is Our Lady of Einsideln, and said, "Mama, help."
Mhm.
And at that moment, this extraordinary nurse came in and took me into her arms and wrapped her arms around me and put my head against her heart. That's all she did. She didn't fuss with the numbers or, the medicine. She just held me. And
Mm.
she said, "You're going to come through this."
Mm.
And I think what I
Wow.
want, yeah, right?
That's a lot. Yeah.
I think that what I was given in that moment, we are going to come through this as a species. Our planet is going to come through this, but we're going to have to call out to our mothers. We're going to have to call out to our mountain mothers, our ancient mothers, our mothers from before civilization, from before trauma, to come and hold us and heal us. Eventually the nurse did call the doctor, and eventually they did adjust my medicine, and then eventually I started to feel better. So, both are
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
but um
But also the magic of you just having called out energetically, and then there was someone
there's so
there.
much more to this story I could go on. I'd also
Sure.
dreamt of this woman 3 weeks earlier. I write down all my dreams, and I'd written down the name of the woman I dreamt with, and it was her name.
Okay.
Yeah, it was it
Wow.
was it
Yeah.
was very profound. Um,
Mm.
And even more startlingly, this is the way my life is. This is my next book. You're getting it into this. My whole next book is about this moment
Oh.
because it took me 9 months to get a diagnosis for what happened. No one could figure out why I'd gotten so sick.
Mm.
Eventually, they found out that I have a very peculiar tick-borne allergy called alpha-gal syndrome, which makes me allergic to all mammal-based products, including medicine. So a lot of the medicines they were giving were making me sicker.
Oh no.
Right. And
Mm.
it's a long story, but I got diagnosed on St. Francis's feast day, and I felt like what the calling was that the animals are calling to me about their own suffering
Ah.
within this situation and saying, enough, enough, enough.
Mm.
But we can call it to the mothers. Now,
Mm.
we don't have to heal our dead ancestors. That's one of my other really important messages to people. We
Right.
don't
So it's because so maybe you would do something like that energetically in trauma work where you would like if you when you find something transgenerational, you would
Yes.
send it back to where it came from. And you're saying we actually don't need that. And of course for that person to be healed. No.
Well, sending it back is okay. I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
need to carry this. Believe me, I think it's a good idea to send back our addictions and our anger and
Okay.
our resentments and our, please do that because they
Right.
can handle it. The dead are dead. They can handle
Mm-hmm.
anything we put in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things I've learned I've worked with the dead for 30 years, and part of what civilization did when it got going was it had to separate us from our relationship to the land, our relationship to our mothers, and our relationship to our ancestral mothers.
Yeah.
And the really profound thing that religion does is it demonizes the relationship with the dead. It doesn't want us talking to our ancestors. It
Mm.
doesn't want us in communication with the bears and the trees or the earth.
Mm.
If we're going to kill the earth and kill the animals and domesticate them, we certainly better not be talking to them too much, right?
Yeah, that's considered like supernatural or something.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens is the priests come in, the priests of Buddhism, the priests of Christianity, all the priests come in and say, don't listen to your dead grandmothers, listen to us. And the way they get people to start listening to them instead of their dead grandmothers is by demonizing and frightening people about the dead. This kind of propaganda campaign that the dead are dangerous, they're bad dead, they're going to haunt you, they might be demons, they might infect you with some virus of their trauma. And in the Catholic Church and Christianity, there's this whole medieval idea that becomes indulgences. We have to pay the priests. Now it becomes, of course, in capitalism, it always becomes financial. We have
Yeah.
to pay the priests to do the prayers that will release our ancestors from their ancestral trauma and purgatory. And unfortunately, I see a lot of ancestor work reifying that same, pay me for this workshop. I will come. We will do the work. We'll release your ancestors from trauma. And I'm going to tell you something really radical.
Yeah.
Those ancestors who were traumatized, they have seen the very worst that human beings can do to each other.
Yeah.
And they are not alive anymore. They are dead. And they are empowered by the long story of their own souls to help us change things, to heal us, to heal our bodies and the body of the world. And so when when I, like when I was reading the Epstein files, and I read them.
You read them.
Oh,
Okay.
you better believe I don't let those boys get away with anything.
Okay.
I have my eyes on them and I will talk about it. But who did I call on to read them with me?
Mm.
But those young people who were murdered by these monsters.
Mm.
One of the only names I have is Virginia Giuffre, but I called on her and I called on the legion of disappeared, trafficked young people in this monstrous scheme and said, be my eyes with me, be my voice with me. Together, we must change the world.
And so they were empowered, like you're talking about, because they're dead.
Yes. Because when we die, here's the thing. People think it's going to be very terrible to die, but we know from near-death experiences, it's not so much. It's more of a reunion.
Yeah.
But it's not just a reunion with other souls we've known on the other side. It's a reunion with our own soul. And at that moment, we see what I call the long story of our own soul. We see our lifetimes as bears.
Mm.
And that bear self within you is not so frightened of certain things
Ah.
and has certain memories. And we see our lifetimes before civilization. We
Mm.
see all that we've been. We've seen that we've been men and women. We've been heroes and we've been villains. We've also made mistakes, right? We aren't
Mm.
just the traumatized witch burned at the stake. Sometimes we've also been the inquisitor.
Ah.
So it's important, you know, that poor, poor misunderstood being, Jesus, you know, Jesus's crucifixion has lasted to 1,000 years, as far as I can tell. But, he says in the Gospel of Thomas, be passerby, be no one.
Mm.
And I think what he's intuiting is and he was always trying to radically disrupt people's idea of identity, right? Be a lily, be a flower, be a bird. Become who you already are that's within you. Don't get so stuck in, I am this, I am that, right?
So that's really the attempt that we all I want to do is to do it before we die, like to have that
Yes.
the the longer story before we die, right?
That's it. If we can see with that big perspective,
Yeah.
I always say, can I see with the eyes of the dead while I'm still alive? But here's the thing, then I start to realize that everyone I meet has been my mother in one lifetime or another. And I also begin to realize, and I say that and people go, oh, I said, but how many of us have had the experience of, haven't we met before? Why do I think
Yeah.
I know you? How come you feel
Yeah.
so familiar to me?
Yeah.
Right? We've all had that experience.
You don't think it's just because we all look the same? Sometimes I think about that. Like there are like categories of us, but we kind of fit into some one shape or
I
another.
always say to the trees, we all look the same. They don't make much difference between me and Donald Trump, I'm afraid. But unfortunately, I have to take that in. But but I also think, there are people with whom we have tremendous resonances with that we
Yeah.
can't explain.
Yes. Yeah. You got me on that one. The resonance, I can't explain that. Yes.
And
That
even,
is.
I have a little puppy. She's decided to join us in the interview, and I just
Yeah.
I just feel I feel, my soul feels like she's come home. She's here. She's
Yeah. Yeah. You know each other. Yeah.
and but it's not
And
just that
so,
every soul we meet has been our mother. And
mm,
this is the really radical moment when we realize we have been the mothers of
yeah.
every soul we meet. And when I say soul, I mean soul. So I am not just the mother in one lifetime or another of this little puppy. or my children or the trees or you, but I'm also the mother of the tick that bit me.
Mm.
What does it mean? You know,
Yeah.
it's going to change my relationship to everything, to everything. And I do believe that to live in that long story, that circular story of the eternal return, is to begin with humility to realize that we don't really know what's happening a lot of the time.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I can really tap into your openness and the compassionate attitude you would hold after having really experienced that and taking that in. And just so if I try to like say what we've said until now, so we have the trauma question, and you say this is just like per definition in our civilization that we are traumatized and we could not be in the system if not for the wounding. And then you say, and it's actually a misunderstanding that when we die, then we should be healed because, in fact, we can get help from the other side because they are empowered.
They are. And so for instance, I really had a terrible sugar addiction. I mean, a real, a serious sugar addiction that I tried to address in many ways from, help me understand nourishment or, I mean I did a lot of, but finally it got to the point where I said, all right, we gotta be honest with myself about this one.
Yeah,
And, I can have a glass of wine and it's no big deal, but I can't have a cookie, one cookie and I'm in a gutter with a chocolate cake. So it's
yeah.
the person I pray to was my best friend's mother, who died of alcoholism at age 53. She was this incredibly beautiful, smart, funny, really funny, lovely person. I adored her as a child. Also
Mm.
she had, she had a great bookcase, which I loved, and wry sense of humor, tremendous warmth. And she was, for many reasons in her life, incarnational experience, horrifically addicted to alcohol and one of the worst alcoholics I've ever met. Everyone would say about her, when she hits bottom, she'll get sober. Well, Bottom was dying in an apartment with no furniture, filled with broken vodka bottles at age 53, her esophagus having burst from so much vomiting.
It's really dangerous with that opinion to say you have to hit rock bottom because who knows
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
where that
My daughter and
is.
I talk about this all the time. Your bottom, you have a bottom. She didn't have bottom.
Yeah.
Her bottom was in another life. And,
Yeah.
and, and, you know, and it was a real mystery to me. How could somebody with so much heart and so many resources be so destroyed by this addiction? And of course, I had to ask that question about myself. And when I went to get sober, I began praying to her every day.
What did that do for you? Did she say anything? Did you get any answers?
Oh, so much. Here's the thing. First of all, the first thing that happened was I'm in a prayer group, that meets once a week, and a woman showed up and said, I am trying to get sober from sugar and I'm praying about it. And I said, so am I. And we became buddies. So she sent me a living friend, just the way the mother sent me the nurse, a living friend. And, I've studied 12-step work a great deal. And, when you become responsible for somebody else's sobriety, your own sobriety changes.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then we shared Rita and I shared pictures about her and I said prayers to her every day and we had a buddy and it's now been 4.5 years.
Mm.
And when people will say to me, well, do you have honey and maple syrup? And I'll say, nope. You know?
Not even that. I don't know if you had the time to read my notes, Perdita, but if you did, you will know that I am in there with you. I've had
Oh,
that. Yeah. And
really?
it's so rare actually. Yeah, I like your reaction because it's so rare. Usually it's something else that people consider to be a real addiction, but sugar is a real addiction.
It is a biological addiction. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to get sober. I think it may be easier to get sober from cocaine than white sugar. And
Yeah, also because you are helped that it's illegal.
I
I
know
mean, sugar
exactly.
sugar is everywhere, and sugar is like it's just for children, so it's like so innocent. And
It's so
oh,
innocent.
it's
And it's fed to us by
yeah,
civilization to
mm,
keep us compliant and quiet. Like how
yeah,
many, bring your girlfriend a box of chocolates. You know what I mean? Like give the child a cookie. I mean, I was
yeah,
as guilty of this as a mother as my own mother was with me.
yeah,
My mother's love language was sweets.
yeah,
Uh, and me too. I would bring home the big chocolate babka from the city when I had to go be gone for the day for the kids. And you know what I mean?
yeah.
Or making the birthday cake. And my body, however, had a relationship to sugar that, I have a sister-in-law. She can have a piece of cake in the fridge and she takes a bite every afternoon with a cup of tea. It's not her problem.
Exactly. That's not the same. That's not the same, when people might say, "Oh, I'm addicted too," but it's not the same extent of it.
No, my low point was I went and bought a solid chocolate bunny for my son's Easter present and I ate it on the way home. Oh boy.
Yeah. No, I totally sympathize with that.
But
And
I but
so
but who on the other side can help you?
Well, I really want to get into this way of thinking with you. I mean, but it's a few years ago that I haven't had that
Oh,
I made a similar clean cut. That's why I related so much to that part of
oh,
the book as
fantastic.
well.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. So yeah, wow.
Yeah,
But
and I had to because after so many years of going up and down, eating a lot, stopping, all of that. And then I just decided no more sugar.
by the way, it also transformed my relationship to food because I began to
Mm,
enjoy food in a way I had never been able to enjoy food. I began
mm,
to enjoy my body and less frightened of my body.
mm.
One of the things, there's an amazing book I read about sugar, and I've read a lot about the sugar industry. And it's really interesting to me that the first crop grown by Columbus in the New World, Columbus, was sugarcane. That was what created the slave trade. And it was what created rum. It's what created, and it's in the rise of industrialism, the thing that used to keep people chained to the agricultural civilized way of life was beer. There's a big
Yeah.
discussion among anthropologists, like, did we start civilization to grow grain for bread or for beer? And it looks more and more likely that it was beer. And
Yeah.
basically, nobody wanted to do this awful work. And the way you convinced people to do it was with a pint at the end of the day. And, if you could get drunk, you would commit to doing horrible things so you keep people in a cycle of addiction.
Mm.
And that's how civilization has created addictions to keep people reliant upon civilization. And and sugar arises with the industrial age because getting drunk people are not good at working with machinery. So what do you invent is the coffee break, tea time. You invent, oh, a donut, a cookie, a chocolate covered biscuit, a pastry, a this, a that, and that a dessert. You will get your dessert at the end of the day if you
Right.
do this. And
Right.
cheap sugar becomes the addiction of the masses.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you say, it's cheap, so it it goes a long way before you have to stop for financial reasons.
It's not cheap to make, though. It's really horrific is how much modern slavery is involved in sugar production and
Oh,
how much women are involved in that slavery, even today.
it's a lot with this culture, and I think it's always good to look at where you're at, where what norms there are, and what are we just taking for granted. And I just began a new job just a few days ago. And because we're new to each other, like I had to say it actually even before I started because there was cake and they were like, "Are you not gonna have any?"
I know. I know.
It's so, the way to be social. And I had to say I actually stopped sugar, but I work in drug rehabilitation, so they have to understand, they have to get this, the abuse
Well,
dynamic.
you know what? I have been empowered by so many of my friends who've gotten sober from alcohol and sugar because I have a friend who used to put his hand over his glass and say, I don't drink, not even a drop. I can't.
Yeah.
That forthright admission of the
Exactly.
addiction is very empowering. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I
Yes.
can't do this. And
Yeah.
and and, and I get the same thing. Oh, just one bite. It's just a
Yeah.
cookie. Oh, I made it with honey. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You know what I mean? I get this all the time, and I always have to say, and I try to keep it light and try to keep it funny,
Yeah.
but I have to be very strict. And it's very interesting when you get sober,
Mm.
just as your sobriety becomes like a virus for other people's sobriety. You don't know how you inspire.
Mm.
And, both my children are really serious about what does sobriety mean in this culture. They both have done real explorations of it, and my son has really talked about it, just the culture of alcohol and pot and drugs. And now, my daughter says, now everybody's getting addicted to psychedelics. I mean, we'll turn anything into an addiction in this culture. I mean, tobacco was a
Mm.
powerful, beautiful, potent medicine of the indigenous people of the Americas.
Mm.
And look at what we did with it.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really interesting point how civilization is kind of fed by addiction.
Yeah. I mean, and in my book, I write about my mother's addiction, which was really hard. My
Yeah.
mother, I don't even think my brother and sister would call my mother an alcoholic because it was that, the drinking didn't begin till 5 o'clock. It was very polite. It followed the rules. But for me, who was the youngest in the family, it was awful. It meant I couldn't be intimate with her. She
I
disappeared.
think, yeah, disappearing, that's what it's about, right? Like numbing out. And I remember a time where she, like you came home from something important, like a play or something, and she was just lying there and had her wine, her alcohol anyway.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I would have terrible fights with her because when she got drunk, she would get resentful and angry and upset and combative and I mean, there's always the moment where she thinks it's making her nicer and smarter, and really it's making her more tuned out and more disorganized. And
I have to ask you this now, Perdita, because other people will relate to mothers not being perfect and actually being maybe abusive, or at least traumatized, so that they bring that trauma to you. Like, what do we do with that, and how do we have to forgive the individual mother, even though we are talking about the collective reality of mothers? But yeah,
okay, let's talk forgiveness.
yeah,
So, I wrote a whole book about this called Take Back the Magic.
ah,
Okay, my father, who was a son of a bitch, when he died, um, I found out he'd been a doctor. He left my mother. He had another family, but he completely cut me and my brother and sister from the first marriage out of the will. And to do that, it takes a lot of really unpleasant language. And it wasn't so much that I felt upset about the money. I just felt upset about he didn't leave me a painting. He didn't leave me a letter. He didn't leave me a quarter from under the couch. You know what I mean? Like it
calls
was
you.
it was it
Yeah,
was his heart. It was the
yeah,
heart violence of it that was really painful. A treasured book or something to
mm,
acknowledge our connection to each other.
yeah,
And it was so hateful. And I write this story at great length in this book. And I was profoundly angry, angry unto death. You know what I mean? Like, and he had done a lot. He'd been physically violent with my mother. He had been a very difficult and unhappy man.
mm,
And do I have an obligation to forgive that man? Well, when he was dead, I finally could be as angry as I really was. It was finally safe to be really angry at him.
yeah,
And I was really, really, really angry at him. And then he began to show up. And I began to ask him for help financially. And I mean, I will tell you a story about him. Okay, so my father was a doctor, and he, in a small town at a small hospital, which he ran, and he was a surgeon by training, but because it was such a small community, he also worked as a general practitioner and he also ran the emergency room. He had a partner, and his partner was an alcoholic. So my father was really on 24/7. And in those days, there weren't pagers or cell phones. Our home telephone was the only way the hospital could reach him during an emergency. And every time the phone rang, he would stiffen.
Yeah.
And he would answer the phone the same way every time. Forgive me. He'd go, Jesus H fucking Christ, what is it this time? And sometimes it was the hospital, and sometimes it was a friend of mine. You know what I mean? And they go, "Hi, Dr. Finn, is Perdita there?" You know? But that was my dad. On the other hand, he was a brilliant doctor, and he was very beloved by his patients and very beloved by the community. He hated being a doctor. He was an immigrant son. He hadn't wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to be an artist. He was frustrated. He was unhappy. There's a lot I write about it with him, his complexity. Nevertheless, he was this, you can imagine, a pretty difficult guy. There was one thing he was really good at, and was medicine. And he was really good at knowing who the experts were to get people to when they needed a specialist. And so in the 1970s, when I was 16 and started to have painful periods, he got me to the endometriosis expert up in Boston and had me get laparoscopic surgery. I mean, who was doing that in the 1970s, right? Like, so that the fact that I was able to have children, I mean, he took it really seriously, medical stuff.
Yeah. So you have a lot of also thankfulness towards him.
Yeah, I mean, was he nice to me after the surgery? Not so much, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was a very complicated person, as
Yeah.
are we all.
Yeah.
After my father died, about a few months after my father died, my daughter became profoundly ill. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, we find the best guy in New York or Boston, and we get a good diagnosis, and we get it better. And we spent all of our money looking for that person. And we spent all of our money on tests, and we maxed out our credit cards, and we took out a second mortgage on our house. This is American medical health care. And then all of the best doctors kept telling us something is really, really the matter with your kid, and we don't know what. And I had a 16-year-old girl lying in bed at home screaming, "Get me out of my body, my bones hurt."
My God.
And I didn't know what to do.
No.
One day I went to the gym, and I was, just trying to get out my fury, my frustration, take 1 minute to clear my head. And, I was thinking, God, Dad, if you were alive, I was talking to my father,
Yeah.
you would know. You would know the person, and I can't find that person. Why, and I also don't have any money because you didn't, if you'd left me at least a little money, I wouldn't be in, so much financial trouble. And, and I don't have anything. And why aren't we, God damn you, I was saying as I worked away at the gym.
And did he
And
answer you?
yes, as I was leaving, a woman came up to me and said, Perdita, how's so? And I started to cry, and my tale of woe came out. And she said, "Oh, you got to go see Fiona. She's a psychic in town." And I think, "Oh no, no, I don't need a psychic. I need a doctor."
Yeah.
But I came home and my daughter was crying in bed and said, "Mommy, how do I make the pain stop?"
Hmm.
And I have no idea. So I had nothing left. I went in to the address this woman had written down for me, and I walk into this crazy little store I've never been in. And this crazy little woman appears, and she's tiny and so thin. Her skin's almost translucent. She's got purple hair. She looks at me and she jumps back and she says, "Oh, your kid's sick. That's why you're here." I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, come on back." I did not know. I would write a book with her called The Reluctant Psychic. I wrote a book about her. She was extraordinary. And I didn't realize that she hated doing psychic readings, and she usually tried to avoid it. And this was a very, very
Rel-
unusual experience for people to have with her. She usually hides from people. So she brings me back and we sit down, and she looks at me and she says, "Oh," she said, "oh, I do not like the bad language, but your father's here." And he says, "Jesus H fucking Christ, Perdita, what is it this time?" And I
Mm.
screamed at the top of my lungs because I knew my father was there.
Yeah.
He was there. Like
Wow.
that was my father answering the phone. And I said, "That's my father."
Mm.
And she said, "Yeah, yeah, he's right here. He's always with you." Feels bad. I said, "Well, ask him what I'm supposed to do to get my daughter better. Who do I
Yeah.
go to?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Me. Brought you to
Okay.
me. I'm going to help you." And she did.
But so what, he was not healed at that time, your father,
Oh,
using
he
all of
was
that.
healed. He was healed.
Okay. The language was just still around.
Sure. How else was I going to recognize him?
Oh yeah, okay.
How
Good,
else
good.
was I
Yeah.
going to recognize him?
Right.
How else does he answer the phone? Who would know that other than me? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
She just said your father's here. He wants the best. Bullshit. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm like my father. I would have called. Instead, what happened was actually a profoundly transformative moment for my entire family.
Mm.
And my father began showing up not just to help guide my daughter's care, but also to help me out financially. He's been so generous to me financially. So let me go back to forgiveness.
Mm.
I have forgiven my father, but I have
Okay.
100%.
Mm.
In fact, I called on him this morning. I call on him all the time. And every time I call on him, he shows up.
Mm.
I don't feel anger at him anymore. I feel so much compassion, so much intimacy. I send blessings to his future incarnation, wherever he is, every day.
What about your mother? Did you forgive her?
Oh, I forgive my mother in my arms while she was dying.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is so moving stuff you're talking about, actually. Yeah. Oh
Here's the
man.
thing. One
Mm.
of the things, when my mother died, my children were 8 and 6, and I realized that motherhood was a rigged game in civilization.
It's a rigged game. Yeah.
You have children?
Yeah, I do. Too early, way too early. Yeah, so I did all the mistakes. You
You
know
know
what?
what? Whatever you do is right. Here's the thing.
Mm.
It's not, there's no too early or too late, or see, every mother judges her choices as having been a mistake. Oh, I was a helicopter mother. I was too attentive. Oh, I was a narcissistic mother. I was too neglectful. Oh, I had them too young. Oh, I had them too old. Oh, I should have quit my job. Oh, I should have kept my job.
Mm.
Civilization sets mothers up to doubt themselves. What it doesn't create is the impossibility of a single person being enough mother for anybody.
So it's just never gonna be enough with that one
Never.
person.
Uh, so here's a way, a thought experiment I do with people that I think is sometimes helpful. If your mother was an animal, what animal would she be?
Yeah.
Now, my mother was a tiger, and a tiger is beautiful, powerful, dangerous, scary as shit. You know what I mean? Like, and she eats runts.
Yeah.
You show any weakness and she eats you,
Oh,
right?
okay, okay, yeah.
So there are
So,
great things about having a tiger mother, but I also needed an otter mother. I needed a mother who wanted to
mm,
put me on her lap and play with me. I
mm,
didn't have that mother. I needed a dear mother who could be quiet with me out in the woods and just walk with me. I needed an owl mother who could wrap her wings around me and whisper secrets to me in the darkness. If I had 13 animal mothers
yeah.
embodied by 13 human mothers, male and female, young
Mm.
and old. So you were a young mother. You needed some old mothers. My
Yeah.
mother was an old mother. She needed some young mothers. You know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
what,
as a child, you would have more people to look up to and to know where you could go with yourself and what parts of you to develop.
right? Right. And then you're not, and male mothers, right? Like the best parts of my father were the mother parts of my father.
Yeah.
He could be a great mother. Like he loved babies. And I
Oh,
would watch him with my children. Like he had this capacity
wow, that's
within
nice.
him. And it was the same capacity in him that could deliver, a death sentence to a patient, that could
Mm,
tell someone their loved one had died in the
mm,
operating room. He had tremendous depth
mm,
of compassion. But
mm.
he also had all this testosterone and these ideas of masculinity and
Yeah.
ugh. Anyway,
Yeah.
what if we had enough mothers?
Yeah, I mean, I come to think of the sentence that I said so many times back then was, I'm not sufficient to be a mother. I'm not enough. And in a way, you can do away with that just as low self-esteem. But in this light, it's like, yeah. And because you're never gonna be. In a way, it's kind of
You can never
fair.
be.
It's kind of fair to see that children have more needs than you can supply, that you can give.
I mean, I had my daughter. She, thanks to that laparoscopic surgery, I got pregnant a lot faster than I thought I was going to. And then, um,
And there
and
she
we
was.
weren't, and I weren't really ready financially, and and there's stresses, and I
Yeah.
remember saying to that baby, I'm going to be the best mother I can be, and instantly starting to fail, right? Because
Mm.
of the exhaustion and
Yeah.
the stress and the isolation.
Yeah.
And, right now I'm conceiving, this is the earliest stages of what I'm conceiving. I really want like groups of young women and old women to start showing up for local mothers, like 3 times a week. There's the doula movement, which is terrific.
Hmm.
But it often involves paying, in America, of course, it all has become, rich people can pay for this service. But, if you
Mm.
hear a baby's been born, what if a group of fairy godmothers arrive and holds the baby? You go off to your bedroom, take a shower, have a nap, read a book. We're going to get the house clean, the dishes done, put some casseroles in the oven. Someone's going to play with the kid, you
Yeah.
know, no videos will be turned on.
I'm completely into that because um, I'm not there yet, but I already feel like I want to be a grandmother because because
Good.
I want to have the small one again, right? And give it a second chance. So it's good for everyone. It's not just the mother receiving help. It's also good for the older person to get to do it again.
Yeah, so I'm just dreaming into this idea because I'm looking at my community, my own town. I live in a mountain town. And I know some young women who are heartbroken that they don't have children.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked out for them. And I thought, they should not be heartbroken.
Mm.
They should become mother. This it's this idea of ownership that the baby biologically belongs to
Yeah.
the man that creates so much sorrow. We
Mm.
wouldn't have so much sorrow if we had enough mothers. And we need the aunties, and when I use these words, I don't ever want them to be gendered. I like my son, my wonderful bear son is a great, great mother. He's also very masculine, and he'd come in and
Mm.
chop wood for you and make sure the fire was going.
Mm.
And he'd have the baby on his shoulder the whole time.
Mm. Wow.
But I mean, I think I have a
Mm.
vision
Mm.
for because the third part of my book is the mother beyond civilization.
Yeah.
How do we get out of this mess we're in? Well, Americans look to Denmark. We go, oh my gosh, how could we get there? Can we all move there? It seems so much better to us. And
And it's never as good as it seems, right? It's just not. It's just not. Anyway. Anyway,
but
go
what
ahead.
the vision I have, and whether it takes 7 lifetimes or 7 times 7 lifetimes or 7 times 700 lifetimes, I will hold this prayer in my heart. And that is, I imagine a group of people around a fire outside. It's dark because there are no more electric lights. And luckily, someone's figured out what to do about the nuclear waste at this point and nuclear power plants. The world is quiet again. We can hear the frogs and the crickets and the singing of the nightjars. And we can see the stars again because it's so dark. And the fire is sending up its sparks into the night. And circling that fire are a group of people, young and old, male and female, whatever. No one even thinks of their gender anymore. They
Mm.
all identify themselves as mothers.
Mm.
And held within that circle are the children. How many children are there? I don't know, four, five, six, or seven. and they're running around, and there are always enough hands to keep them and grab them from the fire. There's always a lap for them to collapse in and fall asleep in. There's always someone for them to pet them and hold them. There's always a breast for them to nurse from, right? You know what I mean? There is this circle, it's held. But around that circle of mothers is another circle, and you and I are there together because we are the grandmothers, and the grandmothers circle the mothers. And what they do is they're making sure the mothers are getting the mothering they need. You know, who needs a back rub?
Yeah.
Who needs a slap on the side of the head? Who needs a cup of cocoa? And
Mm,
also, they're looking at the children to figure out who they already are.
mm.
They are recognizing their beloveds come back. The job of a grandmother is to say, who are you?
Ah.
Oh, you're a bear, aren't you? You were the bear we met. Oh, you're great Uncle Harry. You've come back. And there's a wonderful book I'm reading right now by Amitav Ghosh called Ghost Eye about reincarnation in India. It's a novel.
Okay.
Terrific. I cannot recommend it enough. I'm only halfway through. But this little girl is born into this Brahmin family, very wealthy family, and they're vegetarian. You know, they're very religiously observant, but
Uh,
wants to eat fish.
yeah.
And the psychologist who comes in, she is a genius about fish. She was a fisherman in her last life. She loves fish. She loves eating them. She loves identifying them. And and the issue is if the family understood this,
Mm.
she is a genius. Every child is reborn with talents, wisdom, experiences. And what our job as grandmothers is to cultivate it, recognize it, help them claim it, and then help them cultivate it.
And so if we did not have that, if we did not have that kind of grandmother,
Yeah.
we need to think of it in this context of civilization. Is that what you're saying? And then forgive it. I mean, that's a whole process to go through that forgiveness.
I didn't have these grandmothers, obviously. Yeah, I write about my grandmothers in my book. But here's what we do. We all have these mothers and grandmothers on the other side. And
Ah.
that's why I work with the dead.
Mm,
So as a young mother, to get the mothering I needed, I called on the dead for help.
mm,
As a grandmother, as a mother, to get the help I needed, I call on the grandmothers. And not just my, pious Catholic Irish grandmother and my mentally ill English grandmother, but my grandmothers from before civilization, my ancient
mm,
grandmothers,
mm.
my powerful grandmothers, my bear grandmothers, my otter grandmothers, and I call on them all, and my mountain grandmothers. And I think when we begin to feel researched by the earth, we'll be able to rebirth this vision into our species again.
You say to see with the eyes of the dead is to know that the future stretches before us into eternity, and there is all the time in the world for the magic of life itself. Yeah, I'm just trying to hook on to what you're talking about, right? Because it's a whole question of what is reality in a way. And
That's where my book ends. And
mm,
we as human beings have begun to think of reality as this AI information glut that somehow it's going to make us feel better. And reality is touch, and reality is smell, and reality is the feeling of our own heartbeat within our own bodies.
mm,
And it's also true that time and space are not linear. Even the physicists, even the most egg-headed scientists tell us that space and time are folded over each other like origami. What does that mean? How can we begin to live in that reality?
mm,
I think it's pretty simple. I don't think, some people need a psychedelic trip to dislodge their sense of reality. But I would say if you need more than one or two, you're not getting what you needed.
ah,
And what we really need on a day-to-day basis is to know how loved we are by every soul that is. Because
mm,
every soul on the other side, every soul remembers that they're our mother and is waiting for us to call.
Uh,
And what the more important ritual, the more important initiation is, like I did on my hospital bed, is to call out and ask for help.
mm. It makes so much sense to me. It really does. And um, I want to go really quickly to your astrology, but it's right on topic. It's right on topic because because you also mention you mention in the book how your son is in the eighth house, the house of death, and you say that you were born remembering that worlds had died, that everyone I loved had died, that I had died again and again and again and again. And you are together with a fellow sun in the eighth house
Ah,
person. Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, this book really touched me because I think it's, yeah, there's the resonance. Um, so you already know what that is about. Um, but it's in, I'll say it's in a, it's emphasized greatly because it's together with the nodes of the moon. So so that means that can mean different things. It also means that you had a big there was a big personality in your family. It could be either your mother or your father. There was
both. How about both?
both. They were like they took up a lot of space, and so there's more emphasis on the ancestral line just because of that. Talking about it's on the south node, and so you're coming in with a great Aquarian energy, eighth house energy, a community and probably really occult practices within that community. What has become occult? I mean, could be considered natural where you were in that environment, right? Yeah.
It's interesting that I feel such a deep connection the moment I saw you on screen, and the eighth house, the bears, the Aquarius,
The
I feel
sugar addiction.
sugar addiction. There's a lot of resonance here.
Yes, it just is totally. Do you have anything for your chat? Do you have anything you want to ask about? Anything you're wondering about?
Oh, I'm on a pilgrimage right now,
Uh,
and I am. I began this pilgrimage when I got sick, and and as I said, it turned out I'd been bitten by tick-borne a tick-borne illness that made me very sick, and it has meant I can't travel. And it's because I am allergic to all mammal products. I can't get on a plane or a train. And so I'm doing a pilgrimage in place. And if there's any wisdom in my chart about pilgrimage, I'm open to it as I begin this journey, and as I'm on it.
at the time being, I mean, you are having a Pluto transit to um, to your Saturn, and that's not necessarily easy. So that means also a transformation of your density. It could be something just the way that you are growing, the way that you are becoming an elder, transformations, deep shifts around that. So, I mean, when I say density, it can be around bones, and it can be like, you can translate these sort of things very practically. But in a more metaphorical sense, more open sense, it's a shift of the way that you are a leader in your own life.
That feels very, very much like what I've been feeling myself doing, and it's so interesting. I've often felt like I needed to go out into the world and to travel and to meet, and this is about what does it mean to be still and call things to.
Ah. Being committed in a different way. Every Saturn word, like you have to do it in a different way where you even get to go deeper somehow. I mean, sometimes when you travel, you might miss more soulful stuff. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
and I can't go to restaurants, and I can't do a lot of the kind of busy work of modern life. So
So the blessing in disguise, is that what you
very,
say? Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. All right, Perdita. Wow, I'm so glad for your book. And obviously, you have a longer authorship, and so people can find several of your books. And is there anything you want to leave people with here in the end?
Well, I always leave with the same message, which is the message of this book, which is I hope people know and can begin to access how loved they are by so many souls on the other side they've
Yeah.
never even remembered, but who remember them. We have more mothers than we know, and they are waiting for us to call. And the moment we call, they'll start showing up.
Man. Oh, man. Thank you so much for reminding us. I really mean that. Thank you so much for reminding us. Because this mind we have, we hear it and then it's gone. We hear it and then it's gone. Like, stay on
Exactly.
track. Like, do it, do the practice and try to call on them yourself. Right. Yeah.
And even for people, I know you're working in addiction and it's really a hard word, but I think a lot of the addiction is just feeling so worthless and so unloved and knowing that they're great underworld journeyers, those folks, and they can come back with great wisdom. The wisest people I know are the people who come back from that journey.
Right. I think so too. I think so too.
Mm.
They've learned the wisdom. Yeah. They've gained it.
I
Yeah.
always say, the descent of Anana is not a weekend workshop. It's
Yeah. Mm. Thank you so much, Perdita Finn. I don't want to let you go, but I have to. But I don't want to.
let's
But I
have
have
another
to.
conversation sometime. I'll write another book, we'll have another conversation, or read my other book and we'll have another
Great.
conversation.